It started with a sound. The quiet buzz of my phone on the table. I almost didn't pick it up, if only I hadn't. One tap, and there she was. My daughter. In a white dress. Her smile radiant, her eyes, full of a joy I had never seen before. For a moment I couldn't breathe. I thought maybe it was someone else. Maybe it was a photo shoot. Maybe anything but what it really was. Then I saw the caption. Congratulations to the newlyweds, and beneath it, hundreds of hearts, flowers, blessings. Everyone knew. Everyone except me. My hands began to tremble. The phone slipped, landed softly on the floor. The tea beside me had gone cold. I just sat there, frozen, staring at nothing. How long had she been planning this? How many times did she walk past me, hiding that ring, that secret? Was I really that easy to forget? I looked around the room. Her old photos still on the wall. Her childhood drawings framed beside the clock. The house suddenly felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath with me. I tried to remember the last thing she said to me. Something simple maybe, take care, Mom. But now, even her voice felt like a stranger's. That night I didn't sleep. I kept opening that same photo, zooming in on her face, searching for some trace of me. A look, a memory, a shadow. But there was nothing. She looked beautiful. And happy. So happy. Without me. Maybe I was too strict. Maybe too soft. Maybe I was just too much of something she didn't need anymore. When morning came, I walked past her empty room. The bed still made, the window slightly open. And for a second, I thought I heard her laugh. But it was just the wind. I closed the door. Slowly. Like closing a part of my life I would never reopen again. That's when I whispered to myself. If she doesn't need me in her new world, maybe it's time I leave this one behind. When my daughter got married, I didn't find out from her. I found out from the internet. That thought kept echoing in my head, over and over, until it became a sound I couldn't escape. The house was quiet that morning. Too quiet. Even the clock on the wall ticked slower, as if it was tired of keeping time for a home that no longer felt alive. I walked through the hallway, touching the walls with my fingertips, each step whispering a memory. The place smelled of her childhood, soap, books, and a little bit of old paint. I stopped at her room. It looked exactly the same, neat, untouched, as if she might walk in any second, smiling, saying, "Mom, I'm home." But she didn't. And I knew she never would. Her bed was still made, her curtain still half open. The light fell gently across her old desk, and there, beneath a layer of dust, was a small hair clip I'd bought her years ago. Pink with tiny pearls. She used to call it her lucky clip. I picked it up, and my hands began to tremble. How can something so small hold so much silence? For a long time, I just stood there, the sound of my own breathing louder than the world outside. Was I too strict? Or maybe too soft? Did I make her feel unloved, or too loved? I'll never know. I walked to the window. Outside life went on. Cars passing, children laughing, a dog barking somewhere far away. The world didn't pause for my heartbreak. It never does. That's when I realized. This house wasn't home anymore. It was just a museum of memories. And I was its only visitor. So I did the only thing that made sense. I called the property agent. My voice didn't shake, not even once. I just said, "I want to sell the house." He asked, "Any reason?" I paused. My eyes wandered across the walls. Photos, shadows, and the echo of a life that wasn't mine anymore. And then I whispered, "Because there's no one left here to come home to." That night, I sat by the window again, watching the lights fade outside. The world moved on. And maybe it was time I did too. The rain started before dawn. Soft, steady, tapping against the window like someone gently asking to be let in. I sat at the edge of my bed, holding an empty box. Cardboard thin, but heavy in meaning. It was strange how something so light could carry a lifetime. The floor creaked when I stood up. The air smelled of dust and rain. That mix of goodbye and memory. I walked toward her room. It still smelled faintly of her. Shampoo, jasmine perfume, and that little bit of warmth that lingers long after someone leaves. I opened her closet. Clothes still hung there, pressed, waiting. A blue dress caught my eye, the one she wore on her 16th birthday. I remembered how she twirled in it, laughing, asking, "Do I look grown up, Mom?" And I had said, "Not yet." I didn't realize how soon yet would come. I folded the dress carefully, as if she might still need it someday. The fabric was soft, but my fingers trembled, not because of the cold, but because it felt like holding time that would never come back. Each drawer I opened whispered something. Old letters, photos, a dried flower from her graduation day. I placed them all in the box, one by one, like fragile pieces of a story I wasn't allowed to finish. The rain outside grew louder. I could hear every drop against the window, a rhythm that somehow matched the beating of my heart. I sat down on the floor, surrounded by half-filled boxes, and for a while, I just stared at them, not as things, but as echoes. This was more than packing. It was erasing myself from the spaces she no longer remembered. A quiet thought crossed my mind. When she opens her new home's door, will she ever think of this one? Of me? Maybe not. Maybe that's how love fades, not with anger, but with silence. The rain slowed. The house felt smaller, and I whispered to no one. I hope she's happy even if I'll never know. I closed the last box. The sound of the tape sealing it was sharp, final, like the closing of a chapter that had taken my whole life to write. Silence has a sound. You only hear it after you've closed a door for the last time. I stood outside the house, key still warm in my hand. The morning light was pale, soft, almost shy, spilling across the old walls that had once heard everything. À bord de son somewhere distant. It felt wrong, that a song could exist when I was walking away from everything I'd ever known. I turned once. The curtains were still half drawn, a sliver of her room visible through the glass. For a moment, I thought I saw movement. A shadow, maybe just memory, and my heart almost stepped back inside. But I didn't. I couldn't. The gate creaked when I opened it. That sound. It will stay with me longer than the words she never said. I walked slowly down the narrow lane. Each step felt like tearing a page. Quiet but irreversible. The world outside was alive. Children laughing, a bicycle bell, the smell of wet earth after rain. And yet, none of it reached me. It was as if I was watching life from behind glass. When I reached the corner, I stopped. I could still see the roof of the house, just a small shape now, fading behind the trees. That was my whole life disappearing into distance. I wanted to cry, but tears felt too loud for a goodbye like this. So I just whispered, "Take care, my love." The wind caught my words, carried them somewhere I'll never reach, and for the first time in years, I realized I had nowhere to go. Just a suitcase, a photograph, and a silence that would travel with me. I took a deep breath, the kind that hurts more than it heals, and started walking again, each step echoing softly against the road, as if the world itself was listening to a mother, trying to remember how to live, without being one. The room was small, just a single bed, a wooden chair, and a window that opened to nothing but sky. I placed my suitcase on the floor. It looked strange there, like it didn't belong. Like I didn't belong. The walls were bare, their silence unfamiliar. Back home, even the quiet had a voice. The hum of the fan, the echo of her laughter from another room. Here, there was only stillness. I opened the window. A soft breeze slipped in, carrying the faint scent of rain and dust. Far away, a train passed, its sound fading like a memory that doesn't want to leave. I sat on the edge of the bed. The sheet was crisp, untouched. I ran my hand across it, cold, smooth. Nothing like the warmth of her blanket I used to fold every morning. For a while, I just sat there, watching the sunlight move slowly across the floor. It felt like time was tiptoeing around me, afraid to disturb what was already broken. I took out the photo, the one I'd kept hidden in my bag. Her smile looked the same, untouched by distance, untouched by me. I wanted to call her. Just once, to hear her voice, to know if she was truly happy, but my fingers froze before they reached the phone. I didn't want to sound like a stranger, and maybe that's exactly what I had become. Evening arrived quietly. The sky turned the color of old bruises, soft purple, fading into gray. I turned off the light and lay down. The mattress creaked, and the sound filled the room like a sigh. Somewhere outside, a street dog barked. Someone laughed. Life was happening, just not here. I stared at the ceiling, listening to my own heartbeat. It was the only thing reminding me I still existed. And in that quiet, I whispered to myself, maybe this is how it feels, To start over when you have nothing left to begin with. That night, the silence felt heavier than the room itself. The fan above me hummed softly, a tired sound, circling the same air again and again. Outside, the rain had started once more, gentle, relentless, like it was trying to wash something away. I turned on my side, the bedsheet cold against my skin. The window rattled with each gust of wind, a fragile, trembling sound that somehow matched the rhythm of my heart. I closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Every time I drifted close, a memory pulled me back. Her voice, her laughter, the way she used to say, "Good night, Mom," from the other room. Now there was only the rain, filling the space where her words used to live. I reached for my phone. It was there on the table, screen black, waiting. One touch, that's all it would take. A single message, a single call. But what would I even say? "I saw your wedding photos. I miss you." The words felt too small for the distance between us. I put the phone back down. The sound was soft, but it echoed. Everything echoes when you're alone. I pulled the blanket up to my chest. The smell of new fabric, strange, unfamiliar, made me miss the scent of home. I thought about the day she was born, how I held her tiny hand and whispered promises I thought I'd never break, how easily life teaches you that love alone isn't enough. A tear slipped from the corner of my eye, rolled slowly down, and disappeared into the pillow. No sound, just warmth fading into cotton. The rain kept falling. Hours passed. I could feel morning waiting behind the clouds, but I didn't want it to come, because with daylight comes another truth. She will still be gone, and I will still be here. So I closed my eyes again, and whispered into the dark, "Maybe tomorrow. I'll stop waiting." Rain had stopped before dawn. When I opened my eyes, the room was filled with pale light, the kind that doesn't warm you, just reminds you the world goes on. I sat up slowly. The blanket slipped from my shoulders, and the chill in the air felt like a quiet reminder that I was somewhere new, and no one knew my name here. The kettle on the small stove hissed softly. That sound, the whisper of boiling water, was the only voice in the room. I poured myself a cup of tea. It smelled different. Even the tea. Different water, different hands, different life. I sat by the window. The city outside was waking up. Bicycles on wet roads. A woman sweeping her doorstep. Children laughing as they ran past in uniforms. I watched them quietly, as if they belonged to another world. I took a sip. The tea was too hot, but I didn't move. I just held the cup, letting the steam touch my face. A small, fleeting warmth I didn't know I needed. For a moment, I imagined her somewhere in this same morning light, maybe making breakfast, maybe laughing with someone beside her. And I wondered, does she ever think of me? When the sun touches her kitchen window, the thought lingered, then faded, like breath on glass. I looked around the room, the unopened suitcase, the quiet chair, the photo still resting beside the bed. I told myself I'd go out today, maybe buy a few things, maybe walk without looking back. But I didn't move. I just sat there, watching the light change on the wall, from soft gold to white, from morning to day. Time kept moving, and for once, I didn't try to catch it, because maybe healing doesn't come all at once. Maybe it comes like this, slow, almost invisible, like sunlight slowly finding a room that forgot what warmth feels like. The air outside smelled of sunlight and dust, warm, dry, like the city had already forgotten it rained. I locked the door behind me, the soft click echoing louder than I expected. It felt final, like the sound of not knowing when, or if you'll come back. The street was alive, vendors calling, children chasing a plastic ball, a man balancing a tray of tea glasses that clinked with every step. Life, unbothered, unstoppable. I walked slowly, my steps uncertain, as if the ground needed to remember me. The market wasn't far, just a row of small shops, colorful fabrics fluttering in the wind, the smell of fresh bread mixing with the sharp scent of spices. I stopped near a fruit stall. The vendor smiled politely, offering me mangoes wrapped in yesterday's newspaper. I nodded, took two, and paid without saying much. Even my voice felt unused, like it belonged to someone else. As I turned to leave, I saw them, a mother and daughter, laughing, arguing softly over the ripest guava. The little girl clung to her mother's arm, talking too fast, too happy, the way children do when they still believe the world listens. I watched them longer than I should have. Something inside me ached quietly, not sharp, not sudden, just a slow, familiar emptiness spreading through my chest. The mother looked up, caught my gaze for a brief second. She smiled, a small, gentle smile that said nothing, but somehow felt like kindness. I smiled back, or maybe I tried to. Then I walked away. The road ahead shimmered under the sun. It was too bright, too alive for someone learning how to exist in silence. A soft wind brushed against my face, carrying the smell of guavas and dust. And in that moment, I whispered to myself, maybe this is what it means, to begin again, even when your heart hasn't caught up yet. I walked on, holding the small bag of fruit, as if it were proof that I could still come home with something in my hands, even if I no longer had anyone to bring it to. The sun dipped lower as I wandered back, its light turning the streets into long shadows, stretching like fingers trying to hold on to the day. The bag of fruit swung gently in my hand, a small weight, but enough to remind me I was still here, still moving. I reached the door of the small room, the key cold now, unfamiliar in my palm. It turned with a quiet scrape, and the space inside greeted me with its empty hush. I placed the mangoes on the table. Their yellow skin glowed faintly in the fading light, like tiny suns I'd brought inside to chase away the gray. I peeled one slowly, the juice sticky on my fingers, sweet on my tongue, a taste that carried no memories, just the simple now. For the first time in days, I didn't think of her. Not in pain, not in longing, just as a part of what was. The evening deepened. The city outside hummed, horns, voices, the distant call of a vendor selling evening tea. I stepped to the window, watching the lights flicker on one by one, like stars waking in a concrete sky. A soft smile touched my lips. Unexpected, fragile, but real. Maybe this was freedom. Not the kind I'd dreamed of, but the kind life gives when it takes everything else away. I turned from the window, lit a small lamp, and sat with my tea. Alone but not empty. The world had changed. And so had I. In the quiet, I whispered one last time. Not goodbye, my love. Just good luck. And with that, the silence didn't feel so heavy anymore. It felt like space. Room to breathe. Room to be. The end of one story. The beginning of whatever came next.